Hello Struck. Today I'm bringing you a build for the scout. I've decided to call it Starlight Master Summoner due to the name of the Starlight set we're using, the Master Archer bow, which I strongly suggest for this build for cooldown reduction, and the summonings that we're using, the different types of dryads that we get either for our skills or from a passive. So this build, as you can tell, is a summon based build for the scout. It uses two god skills, Queen's Wrath and Defiler's Reckoning. It uses the heroic Call of the Spirits for extra summons. We're using two more skills with cooldowns. In this case it's Hungry Roots and Spinning Blade, so that we can keep proccing those stacks of Duelist Chain Reaction for up to 200 crit damage. We're also taking advantage of the Executors dagger, which gives us extra damage based on our health regeneration. So we're stacking Guardian Spirit, we're stacking some stuff such as Lone Hunter, the most basic one. We're also using Seeds of Wood to have a chance of spawning even more summons as we're hitting the enemies, which can also get procced by Queen's Wrath's poison, so it's pretty good to have it. And you can just kind of leave your summons to do the job. You can wood a chest. In the meantime, by the time you return to the elite, it would already have lost like half its HP, as you can see in this example here. So it's not completely lazy. You can still kind of have to dodge, you can kind of have to keep spamming things, healing, etc. It's also great that one of our passives can stack up to 100 stacks of extra 2% damage, which means that's a whole whopping 200% damage from all those stacks. So this is a great passive. Its name is Hallowed Spirits, so make sure to have this on the build regardless of what other things you shift around. Even if you decide to go for the non-damage but for the version of it that heals you. Now, as you can see at the top, it's showing you that this is a second version of the build, where I was using, instead of the 5% crit chance collector's passive, I was using a 30% damage elixir. In the skills section I'm kind of explaining which things I switched around when making this version, so you can kind of have that in mind. The build is not set in stone, so you can move things around, change things, regardless of what you decide to pick. It would still be kind of decent and fun to play. So it depends on what items you're gonna be wearing. If you're wearing something like a talisman that reduces the cooldown of the potion, using the power elixir or the cooldown elixir of swiftness would be quite nice. Little bits of the footage I recorded for the clip seem to have gotten corrupted and kind of stuttering at times. Apologies for this. I decided to just use just a few of those clips, not too much, just so I can at least show you a bit more of the version when using the damage elixir. So if this kind of sounds like a build you might be interested in playing, maybe this build video would be what you're looking for. The gear for this set is the Deadly Glow set, known as the Starlight helmet. Key things to tell you in advance would be go for as high cooldown reduction, crit chance, HP and health regeneration you can. So where to get those things? Cooldown reduction comes from the helmet, the bow and the 3 accessories. Crit chance comes from the 3 accessories and the Executor's dagger. Health regeneration comes from the 3 accessories and the tunic and the leg armor. Priority for the armor pieces should be HP, and on the helmet it should be cooldown reduction and HP if possible. Don't beat yourself if you can't get health regen on the 2 armor pieces that can give you that. HP is more important there. And for the gauntlets, the priority should be flat damage and HP over crit damage. So try to get something with those 2 bonuses. Then for the bow, the priority, as I said, cooldown reduction, flat damage. For the dagger, priority should be crit chance, flat damage. Maybe even if you can get some HP, that would be even greater. The amulet Same like rings would be priority, cooldown reduction, crit chance, maybe even some HP and health regeneration if you're lucky. The best amulet, depending on what you would be using, probably might be Amber Talisman for cooldown reduction. If you're using elixirs, maybe the best option would be Spring Talisman. In the skill section I explain more about the elixirs. So just try to get whatever drops with cooldown reduction and crit chance, and maybe if you're lucky, something that also gives you, as you can see, it can give you health or health regeneration on a ring together with cooldown, and maybe some crit chance if you're lucky. So just to tell you more about the other talismans, Wild Hunt Talisman should on theory increase the damage of the Dryads from Defiler's Reckoning and also the Queen's Wrath damage. So maybe it's good because we use 2 god skills. Something that also could be good would be the, where was it? The god skills heal. This one, god skills heal when used. It will be good when it's fixed. At the moment it's broken and it heals the enemies around you, so it's not worth using it. Especially since you have 2 god skills, which means you would keep healing the enemies while using your skills. So hold on to it for now, don't sell it if you get a good one. And when it gets fixed, if it's not meant to work that way, then it will be a great choice for this build. Amber Talisman is great for cooldown reduction. This is great when using elixirs. This is great in general when using those 2 skills. For the rings of choice, the most important thing to know is one of the rings that I've decided to go is Ring of Resonance, which is an invasion ring. And there's 2 more invasion rings, Ring of Dexterity. It goes well with Master Archer, so you get extra 50% to Sword and Rooted, and then you get extra 100% more damage for this skill. So it's not a bad choice, keep it in mind. So I would suggest using Ring of Resonance though, together with a non-invasion ring, such as maybe if you need cooldown reduction, if you're not using Master Archer or Amber Talisman, then get Ring of the Guardian. If you're either using Master Archer Bow or Amber Talisman or both, get Ring of the extra damage, like Untamed Ring. Maybe even Ring of the Spirits for extra health regen and energy regen. You don't need the energy regen, but HP regen would help a bit. But remember, just go for whatever drops with crit chance and cooldown reduction, and maybe even some flat damage, HP regen. Those are good stats. You don't need counter attack, you don't need cost reduction, you don't need energy, you don't need wood quality unless farming. So whatever drops is a good combo of rows, use that. And for the invasion you can get the rings from those 3 nodes. But before attempting to go there, I suggest getting at least the resistance nodes. There are 4 resistance nodes. I suggest going for those 2 first, then going for those 2, and optionally take all those final nodes that debuff the enemies and buff you. So there's options. Once you grab those 4 corruption nodes, I would suggest going for Duelist chain reaction needed for the build. Optional but needed, I would suggest go for it, then maybe get Elixir of Power. If not Swiftness, at least Elixir of Power, and you can experiment with it. And once you've gotten those, then move on to the rings, which is Ring of Resonance here, and Ring of Shadow is here, Ring of Dexterity here. You might want to skip Ring of Shadow and just grab those 2 and experiment with them. This seems to be it for the gear, and next I can talk a bit about the skill point evocation and how I decided to spend the god skill points. The skills I've decided to pick are as follows: Master Archer Superior, Spinning Blades basic, Hungry Roots the basic one, Call of the Spirits Heroic from the set bonus, Queen's Wrath Mastered, Defiler's Reckoning. Here this is optional, but I decided to go for extra crit chance in one of the options, and in the other version I went with Elixir of Power by demoting Master Archer Superior. Guardian of the Spirit Mastered, Duelist Chain Reaction, it can give you all the way to 200 crit damage from the 4 stacks you can get. Seeds of Blood Mastered, Hallowed Spirits Mastered, and Lone Hunter. So since we're using the Executor's dagger, this is good damage for us. This can give us some good damage and damage reduction once we're standing in the zone, especially if it stacks with Queen's Rat zone. This can give us some extra damage, and this is important to know that it stacks up to 100, which means 200 extra damage from the summons, which is nice, pretty nice. 100 stacks of 2%. This you could try and maybe remove and play around with some other things, such as extra health regeneration from Blessing of the Forest. Getting Blessing of the Forest instead of this could maybe allow you to not down mode Master Archer and remove the Blessed Talisman and put the Elixir of Power, or just use it and have some extra skill points to upgrade something else. You can experiment with it. I would not suggest grabbing Tactical Retreat, follow tracks, but you can try experiment with either of those iterations. Upgrading Lone Hunter doesn't seem to be worth it for this build, because as you can see, this will give us extra energy regen, which we don't need. This though, this might be nice. If you decide to remove this, you might be getting crit chance when there are no enemies nearby, but most of the times there are. So I kind of wouldn't suggest going for this. But if you do think you need that extra crit chance, by all means, you can remove this or downmode it and upgrade Lone Hunter. I do strongly suggest you use the latest version of Master Spirit, Guardian Spirit Mastered. As for why I've decided to go for a trap and spinning blade here, it's because we're using Duelist chain reaction. So maybe before you get Duelist chain reaction, you might want to use something else, maybe even some energy cost skill. But we need skills with cooldown, and those three are the skills with cooldown, because the god skills do not count as such, so that we can get all the way to 4 stacks on Duelist chain reaction for 200 crit damage. This can be downmoted, but I'd strongly suggest keeping it as superior, especially if you decide to go for something like Ring of Dexterity for extra 100% damage to stack with the 50% damage from this skill. So this kind of sums it up for the skills. If you think you can experiment with it, make some other choices, maybe like Lucky Charm when farming, or some extra HP, which could give you some damage, as you can see. You could see how the attack kind of improved a bit. But it also improved due to this Guardian Spirit, so if I move away from it, it will be a bit different. So yeah, experiment, make it your own, and if you think you can make it better, do let me know. I wouldn't mind hearing of ways that could make this build a bit better and more personalized. Now onto the god skills. The god skills look something like this. I've decided to go for those 2 HP nodes because more HP increases the amount of health that's being regenerated, which in turn increases the amount of damage. So those skills would receive better numbers when you have more HP. When you have less HP, the health regeneration on the passive, on this skill and on some other things such as the Lone Hunter, would be less. So that's why we would be better off with this. -5 armor we can sacrifice, -5 cost reduction we can sacrifice, -10 energy we can really sacrifice because this build does not use energy at all. And for the rest, it's pretty much simple, just going grabbing all the damage and crit damage etc. nodes all the way to here. I kind of decided to sacrifice this crit damage so that I can grab this one. And alternative would be grabbing this crit damage, removing some of the HP nodes, whether it's those 3 or those 3, and then grabbing those extra nodes here for the armor piercing and the crit damage. It's up to you. If you want more armor piercing, you can even sacrifice some of those or those and just go all the way here. Experiment, see what works best for you, but I suggest trying this first. So this kind of sums up the god skills, pretty simple and straightforward. Now I'll show you some gameplay footage along with a few boss skills for both versions, with the crit chance passive and with the 30% damage potion elixir. You can see the build is all about moving, placing your summons and getting the correct timing of when to use your Call of the Spirits, the trap and spinning blades. If you want to be able to reach 4 stacks of Duelist chain reaction, you kinda have to notice that there's a little bit of downtime in between the skills, so it's good to kind of wait a bit before using one of those skills, just so you can build up the stacks instead of losing the stacks because nothing is in cooldown. Of course, this can be remedied if you are using more cooldown reduction items, so it's good to have like both a Ring of the Guardian and the Master Archer bow, or Master Archer bow and the Amber Talisman, or all three of them, or just the two accessories without the bow. Regardless of what, if you want to keep building up those Duelist chain reaction stacks, you might need to use at least two of those items. As you can see, I'm using Master Archer to keep hitting the enemies, which has a chance to summon additional Dryads, and it also has a chance to reduce my cooldown due to the bow. So keep that in mind, it's always good to do use those attacks every now and then. Even though we don't need the energy regen from it, it does a bit of damage and it does help with extra summons and with extra cooldown reduction. On bosses it would be a bit more difficult to keep staying in the same place for longer, so just stand still, shoot for a second, then keep moving. You would see how it goes in a moment. But for the elites it's a bit easier. For some elites it's a bit easier to just stay on the same place and keep shooting. Now we're moving on to showing you some of the boss footage I recorded earlier. This is the first boss fight. There will be another one on this setup with crit passive, and then there will be a third boss fight with the other setup. The third boss fight kinda got corrupted when I was recording footage for the Elixir of Power, so it will be a bit stuttery. So you can feel free to skip it if you're not interested in seeing how long it kind of took, but it didn't take too long. As you can see, I'm just dodging around, spamming the summon, spamming Queen's Wrath under the boss. Eventually, every now and then I end up dodging through my familiar, and the Guardian Spirit gets triggered with that extra grassland for extra health again, but since we can't stay on the same place for too long, I kinda can't benefit from it on boss fights. But it's still nice to have it. Sometimes it might end up stacking together with Queen's Wrath, and you might be standing on top of both zones for extra health regen, and it would add that extra damage, and I believe that it maybe even adds that damage to your summons while you're standing on top of that. But even if it doesn't, it's still nice to have it. So just keep moving, keep summoning the Dryads, keep using the 3 skills with cooldown so that you can stack up more crit damage from the Duelist chain reaction. And as you're using those skills, you're kind of stunning the enemies around you via the Ring of Resonance, which helps in situations like this, a boss fight on a summoning map where you keep getting extra portals and extra monsters keep appearing. So you kind of need to deal with the odds, and the best way to do it would be Ring of Resonance and then of course some extra AoEs and summons. Thank you for watching this video, folks. If you've liked it, you can let me know by hitting that button. If you want to be notified in the future for build videos that I'm uploading, you can subscribe to my channel. And if you need the links to my Twitch, Twitter, Facebook and Mixer pages, you can either check the description below the video or watch the final sequence of the video. You can also check my Warhammer CHAOSBANE builds playlist for some more build videos that I've made so far. Thank you again for watching the video, and remember to keep it cool. Until next time, goodbye.